Okay, today we're going to do 3-3, solving inequalities with multiplication and division. Okay, the only difference on these in equations is that you have to flip the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative, and I'll show you some examples of those. Do that. Whoops. Okay, so number 1, x divided by 2 is less than or equal to -1. Okay, so you solve this just like you do if this was an equation. It's divided by 2, so we multiply both sides by 2. Okay, we have x is less than or equal. Your answer is -2 because -1 times 2. That's it. You're done with that problem. Okay, now if it was written like this, where x was divided by -2 is less than or equal to -1. So now the number that you're moving is a negative. So the actual number that you move and multiply by is negative. That is the when we have to switch this sign. Okay, -1 times -2 is +2. It does not matter what your answer is. If your answer is positive or negative, it does not matter if this number over here is positive or negative. It only matters if the number you're moving is negative. If the number you're moving is negative, when you multiply or divide, then you switch the sign. So let's say we have 2/3 n is greater than 2. So again, we have 2/3 times n is greater than 2. You can divide by 2/3 since you guys get to use a calculator, or you can multiply by the reciprocal. It does not matter either one. If you want to divide by 2/3, it's fine. It does not matter. This is going to end up, those would cancel and end up being n is greater than 3. You didn't have to switch anything on that one. Okay, but if that 2/3 was a -2/3, that is when we would end up switching. Okay, so when we go to, let me get a different color, multiply by -3/2, or if you're dividing by -2/3, either one, you'll end up with the same answer. But since the number we actually move to the other side is negative, then we switch the sign. And this is actually going to become -3 is your answer because those 2's will cancel. Okay, so only if the number that you're moving is negative do you have to switch the sign. Let me do a few more examples of that. Okay, so if we have 6 is less than 3w, okay, again, we're just dividing by 3, w is greater than 2. Done. You didn't have to switch anything. But if that 3 is negative, then we're dividing by -3, w, now we have to switch this, is less than -2. Okay, you have to switch that sign or it will not be correct. Okay? Now, we're going to do one word problem. There's one like this on your assignment. Okay? So the cost to buy, and I think they were talking about a group buying spaghetti, but I didn't write it all out. The cost to buy a case of 12 jars of spaghetti sauce is $13.75. What is the greatest number of cases of sauce we can buy if we have at most $216? Okay, so the 12 jars per case doesn't really matter. We don't really need that. All we need is this. So we have $216. I always tell people to start with the final cost. We have $216. What we spend over here has to be less than or equal to 216 because that is the most that we have. Well, each case is just represented by X. And then we have $13.75 is how much each case costs. So we have to figure out how many cases we can use or how many cases we can buy. So now it just becomes a regular inequality problem. Divide by $13.75. Divide by $13.75. You can use your calculator. We don't have to switch anything because it's not, there's no negative there. The 13 isn't negative. And it ends up being 1571, which means, and this is cases. So we don't have enough to buy 16 cases, So we would have to buy 15 cases. That's the most that we could buy. We could actually buy less or equal to 15 cases. Okay? And that is it.